Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Gap Perspective with Haley and Janet. In our second episode, we're diving into a topic that touches everyone, regardless of age, the current job market. So, as I was doing my research for tonight's episode, I stumbled upon the two hurdles that I've noticed for Gen Z in the job market, which are a challenging entry, which is facing a tougher entry into the job market than previous generations. We're seeing reports of a frozen job market with fewer entry level positions available. And the second is economic pressures, which is the high cost of living, especially in urban areas, combined with potentially lower starting salaries and creating significant financial burdens. Student loan debt is also a major concern for many in this generation. So, Janet, are you ready to dive into tonight's episode?
Yes, I am, Haley. It's a pleasure to be here with you, as
Great.
always.
I'm so excited to start this conversation with you.
Me too. Okay,
So,
shoot, Haley. Go ahead. You have questions?
yes, my first
Okay.
question for you is, what are some of the biggest differences you've noticed between how Gen Z approaches work compared to how you and your generation did?
Okay. Back in my generation, when I first went into the job market, I went into it when I was younger as a teenager. I don't know if that counts. I was little part-time jobs after school and things like that. But when I got out of high school, I wasn't planning on going to college because I couldn't afford it. So I took business courses in high school. When I got out of high school, I was 2 years with the steno and typing. I had a tough, tough teacher. But thank you to Mrs. Blecker was her name, and I think she's deceased now. She was very strict, but I learned a lot from her, and it took me through my whole career as a secretary and executive assistant. When I got out of school, they would send you, if you had another thing, if you had the marks in that field, I had the marks. So they had a list for me to go to for interviews when I graduated. One was Merrill Lynch in New York City. The other one was the parole board for the state of New Jersey in Jersey City. The other one was Colgate Drug Company and Block Drug. There was probably a few more that I don't remember. But I went on the interviews and I did not want to travel to New York, which I regret now because the salaries in New York were much higher. Had I not been lazy, I would have done that, but I didn't. So I ended up going to the parole board, which was a civil service test you had to take. I was lucky and I got number one on the clerk steno. Fresh out of high school, it was fresh in my mind. So it was easy for me to get a job because I did have qualifications for that position. So I think that the younger people today have to make sure they're very qualified for a position. And it's hard to start out. Then it was more like, they would give you things in the pro board. I would type chronological orders of the inmate, of their lifestyle, what they were doing. The parole officer give it to us. It was a typing pool, so to speak. But today they don't have such things, right, Haley?
Yes, you're completely correct. There's
Yeah.
not that many. I feel like back then, possibly you guys had a little bit more opportunities than us. I feel like now with Gen Z, a lot of companies are looking at experience, which I feel is a little bit difficult because a lot of us don't have the job experience because we went to college full time. So some students are having like gaps in between their resume because they'll be going to college 2 to 4 years and there's that big gap on their resume. And just because of that, possibly, they will not give you a job offer.
But let me ask you something. What type of jobs are out there for you guys? What if you had to apply for a job today, what would it be that you would like to apply for?
Like me personally, or just
Yes.
in general?
You personally, in general, whichever one you'd like to answer.
Well, for me personally, I feel like I would stick with the business end. Like, I like merchandising products or even like marketing and things like that. But even for me, when I'm looking online for like social media marketing or anything like that, there's really not many opportunities or it's very competitive.
Mhm.
In
Do
those
they fields? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do they still have temp agencies, or is that a thing of the past?
That's a thing of the past because when you brought that to my attention about like a year ago or so, I did some research on it and I think there might be one company left, but it's kind of like a hybrid or they're remote now, so you can't really get in contact with anyone.
Mhm. Yeah. When I started out, remember this is in 1971, I was getting paid nothing. But the rent, I still lived at home, but the rent back then was $150 a month. The gas for cars was 40 cents a gallon. A new car was only $4,000. A house was only $25,000. But it all matched because even today, it doesn't match though. Today, it does not match. It seems that you're not making enough money to even sustain those bills. And I think another problem is that a lot of the young people have gone to college. Some have taken courses that don't mean anything, like physiology or something they're not even going to use. Now,
Right.
young adults, 20 to 24 years of age, received most of the new jobs in 1971. I'm reading this from the Special Labor Force by Gloria Green and John Stinson. For the year as a whole, employment of men 25 and over declined, while women 25 and over and teenagers made small employment gains, mainly realized in the latter half of the year. Employment of adult men, those 20 years and over, which had peaked in the first quarter of 1970, drifted downward until mid 1971. As sizable job cutbacks among men 25 years of age and over, employed mainly in the goods producing industries. That's another thing. The industries changed too. We went from the industrial industry to the computer industry. We went from one industry to the other. And I feel that if you don't keep up with the times, you're going to be left behind the eight ball. So you're saying you want to do marketing. What path would you follow? Where exactly would you go? Would you go somewhere for an interview? We had to go places for an interview. You had to interview with the boss face to face or the company HR. You'd have to go face to face. What do you do now as an interview when you go for an interview, or have you gone for any interviews recently?
So now I'm still with the company that I have been with since I was 17. I do honestly prefer a face-to-face interview with the manager, but now a lot of these interviews for jobs are like Zoom meetings or it's at a location that you haven't heard of before. So then it's a lot of job scams as well that we have to watch out for, especially going into the business end of it. some businesses, like I haven't even heard of that I'll like look on Indeed or anything like that. And I'm like, what the heck? And I try to like research it and then things look like more fake, like websites or like Instagram pages. So I feel like that is another con for us looking for a full time position as well.
Right. Right. Well, according to Forbes, skills first hiring has become a powerful trend in today's job market. It's transforming how companies evaluate talent. While employers traditionally leaned heavily on degrees and formal education, industry data shows that 4 in 5 employers now prioritize demonstrated abilities over academic credentials. And of course, the tech sector leads this shift. With approximately 50% of technology job postings no longer requiring 4-year degrees. This represents a meaningful evolution in hiring practices rather than a superficial change in terminology. Now, after I was a secretary, I had gotten laid off from my position in a trucking company. I was the secretary to the director, and they went out of business. So a friend of mine at the time was going to hairdressing school. He said to me, "Would you like to try that?" I said, "I might as well. I'm going to be on unemployment, and I never collected unemployment before. This wasn't my first job at parole. This was my second job after high school. I always wanted to make more money, but I always also wanted to be happy in the position. So I got laid off, and he said to me, 'Come on, I'll take you up.' And I went, and I ended up just loving that. I fell in love with the hairdressing industry. But it was a different time again. To go to school then for that was $1,200 for the course. I think it's 20 something thousand dollars now. I
Yeah.
could be wrong, but I think it is. Do you know how much it is?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's around there.
Yes. And we're talking a long time ago, obviously. My point is, I think that the younger people shouldn't put their eggs in one basket. Like, I luckily found another career in hairdressing, and I went to go on to making it a lucrative career. I ended up buying a shop, and then I bought another shop, and it was a very good career. During the course of that career, a friend of mine said to me, "I'm teaching at this local school, teaching computers." It was just the start of computers, early 80s. And she goes, "Why don't you just come and learn for you? Maybe you need it for the shop, or maybe you could use supplies." Or I said, "Yes." Do you know that was the best thing I could have done? Because after I did that, when I left the beauty industry, I went back to administrative work, but I had the experience, slight experience of computers. And then I kept going to learn, and I went back to school. My point is, I think, like I said, you put too many eggs in one basket. We should always have something to fall back on, in my opinion, not just one thing. Because sometimes that one thing becomes outdated, or that one thing might not exist anymore. And then you fade away with it. How do you feel about that? Do you have any other skills beside the marketing? I mean, I know what skills you have. You are capable of many things, but can you tell everyone what skills you do have, or do you have any besides your marketing education?
So for me, my degree is in fashion merchandising and management. While I was going to school getting this degree, I ended up having to finish my last 2 semesters online. So I ended up not having my on-site internship in the city, so I lost that opportunity due to the pandemic, and a lot of fashion retail companies shut down. So I ended up losing, I always say losing opportunities.
Missing, maybe you mean missing opportunities,
Yes,
right? Not losing, missing, missing the chance.
I have the experience in fashion. It's just, it's getting harder to kind of get into that field. That's why I like branching out into the business end of it, whether it's like home decor, the management side as well. Also, just having like side hustles or interests and hobbies in between. Like, I like to write, I like journalism and things like that. So definitely, I feel like if I take my writing a bit more serious, I would like to see how far I would get with that as well.
Okay. Well, on here, according to Forbes, sorry, excuse me, the current trends of the 2025 workplace have been standing out in the labor market recently. We're noticing a cooling job market, the rise of AI driven hiring, the stabilization of remote and hybrid work, and contract based jobs. That seems to be, according to Forbes, the current trends of the 2025 workplace. It seems that the job market in 2025 has noticeably cooled compared to the previous year. Hiring has slowed across sectors, with job postings declining from post pandemic highs and companies taking longer to fill positions. This, this happens to create challenges for job seekers, especially in technology and financial services, where competition is much greater. So I don't know if you have any experience with technology, or maybe you could take, I know a big thing right now is cybersecurity.
Oh,
That's,
yes, we were talking about that last week.
yes, cybersecurity is a big one. And I don't know what the hiring landscape is in that, but there's always something else you could take. See, Google and Apple, they have government employees in the states like Pennsylvania and Minnesota. These organizations recognize that conventional degree requirements often exclude qualified candidates who develop valuable skills, particularly in high demand areas like machine learning, data science, and automation through alternative means. What I think they're trying to say too is you don't need the 4-year college degree. You can, you could be a tradesperson, you can be a hairdresser, you can be a plumber, you can be an electrician. They will never go out of business. Even if you decided that you wanted to be a hairdresser, for instance, someone always needs a haircut. Someone always needs hair color. There's something that maybe you want to take something else beside what you're doing, just to have something to fall back on. I know for a little while you were working in an office, right?
Yes.
You
Mhm.
want to tell us a little about that?
For me, I feel like just the office life where you're just like sitting down all day, like on a computer for hours, just kind of got a little boring for me. I always like to be able to do something like moving around. I don't like sitting like at a desk all day. Also, with my office experience, half of the time it was only me in the office. So there really wasn't like that much communication with like coworkers or my boss, things like that. Um, even with the certain like websites that I had to go on, I basically had to teach myself, which I was definitely anxious about, but I feel like it also made me grow in a way as well. Because
Right.
having to teach myself everything and grasp it all by myself was definitely a learning experience for me.
Right.
So I do have another question for you. What
Okay.
advice would you give to Gen Z individuals entering the workforce based on your experiences?
Well, the first thing I would say is you have to have networking strategies. You should go out there and meet as many people as you can in the field that you're interested in. Maybe there is some type of, what do you call that? Like in Madison Square Garden, sometimes they'll have a networking industry for fashion, or in PNC Art Center, places like that.
Oh, like the networking events.
The networking events, absolutely. I think that's one thing that someone should do. It's you should activate your broader professional network rather than simply applying online. I think that when you speak to someone, it's much more effective than if you do not. If you're online and you apply for something, they're just going by that piece of paper. They don't know really what your personality is like, really how qualified you are. Maybe someone does have a 4-year degree, but they have the personality of a snail and they can't talk to people. But you might come along, a person that don't have a degree, maybe a 2-year degree, or maybe no degree, but they have a great personality. They have a great gift of gab. Maybe they could do sales. So I think that you should really try to participate in events and go to networking. Use that strategy. There's also AI. It's playing a huge role in everything right now. I think that maybe you need to learn more about that. It's going to be the way of the future, unfortunately.
Yes, I noticed a lot about AI too when I was researching about our topic for tonight's episode, that it's within both of our generations with AI as well.
Right. And again, according to Forbes, in a competitive job market, generic applications rarely get noticed. To stand out, you must customize your materials for each position. Include r- relevant keywords from the job description in your resume, highlighting accomplishments with specific numbers. For instance, if you're working in a company with sales, you could say the sales increased by 10% will appeal more to them than just a vague statement under your responsibilities on your resume. You understand that, right? What that
Yes,
means, be more specific, I think, because they're very selective today.
I
Oh,
also
you
feel
know,
like, oh, I'm
and
sorry.
go ahead. That's okay. Go ahead.
I also feel like with companies that they shouldn't just look at your resume. I feel like they should try to at least have one interview with every candidate. And then there should be a second interview that should determine whether or not you get that position.
Right. Right. Well, sometimes companies, you don't, I recall going to one company, I had to have an interview with, say, the vice president of the company. And then they said, okay, you have to come back next week to meet the president of the company. So they have to agree too. I don't know why they just don't interview you together, but they did not. Maybe today they do. But you have to be adaptable and you have to have strategic thinking. Of course, now it's there's cooling in the hiring right now. And I don't know. I know they're talking about bringing back manufacturing. I don't even know what that means anymore. When I think of manufacturing, I think of men walking with their lunch boxes and their uniforms on, going on the assembly line in a car company, you know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know what any of that means. And I don't think most people today want to do that unless you're standing there and there's a big computer and you're doing AI on there. You're watching everything that's going on. That I can see. AI is going to be the big thing. And I think that you have to get on the bandwagon with that, the young people. That's going to be the way of the future. Do you agree?
I feel like I'm kind of on the fence with it. Like I'm 50-50 with
Hmm.
artificial intelligence. I get that it helps you with basically anything. Like you just type in a sentence and it like generates just about anything. But I also feel like with my generation already in the decline, like when I read the Fortune magazine, there's 4 million people in the Gen Z generation
Really? Really?
unemployed.
Wow. And are they all college graduates or does it say their educational level?
It didn't say their educational level, it didn't specify in that article, but I feel maybe a good chunk of it because it also mentioned, I believe it was 50%, like 40 to 50% earn worthless degrees.
Yeah, see, that's exactly my point. Because another thing is inflations right now. We're going to, we have inflation and the changing immigration policies have also created labor shortages in hospitality, construction, agriculture, and technology sectors, reliant on international talent, a lot of them. Just like what I was saying with the factories, manufacturing. Years ago, they had something called sweatshops. They were illegal, but women would be in there for I don't know how much an hour, and there'll be a row of sewing machines, and they'll be making fashionable clothes for the fashion industry, and they'd be making peanuts, but they kept them there because they were immigrants and they wouldn't complain and they would work very hard. And if some of those jobs are coming back, I don't know who's going to do them. But I don't, that's another thing. I don't think the Generation Z, they're very picky. Should I say that word? Is that the correct word I'm using? Very picky about, what they're going to do. And I think that they're picky because they have choices, because a lot of them are living home. They don't have to worry about getting evicted from their apartment. If they did, it wouldn't matter what they were doing, and they would be working 2 or 3 jobs. But it seems to me that Generation Z wants to come out of the gate making $100,000 without any experience. I don't know. Am I correct in that?
Yes, I could agree with you at some level. I feel like with Gen Z, we easily get discouraged as well because as we're growing up, like we have our parents or young adults in our life, like telling us like to go to college, you'll have a great career, you can make 6 figures, have a great salary. That's what's drilled like in our heads. And then so we'll go to college, we'll get an associate's degree or bachelor's, master's degree. And even people that come out of college with a bachelor's degree put all that time and effort in and still have no job. And then they're sitting there and it's like $100,000 in student debt. And then we're kind of like, well, what did we do that for? That was kind of a waste of time.
Right. Because like I said, uh, though sometimes things shift too. And I don't remember, and you might know this, which side of the brain, one side of the brain is the right side is more hands-on and the other side is more like a college education type of person.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember which is which. But I think going back to the side where trades and all of that have come into play because they have been flooded with college graduates. And like you said, everybody wanted their kids to go to college, but now there's not enough jobs for them. And sometimes it's who you know, not what you know. And
I
just meet
agree.
someone that can say, I like her. She's a nice girl. I'm going to give her the shot. That's why I say you should go to networking engagements because I think that's important. Because when someone meets you, it makes a big difference. Also, what's becoming popular is contract work. Did you ever hear of that?
Yeah.
Freelance, right to hire positions and on call work. Companies use contractors to fill critical skill gaps, especially in technology, in marketing. About 40% of managers plan to use contract professionals for key projects, according to Robert Half. This model offers greater flexibility, higher pay rates, and remote work opportunities. Many professionals now choose contract work to gain diverse experiences while controlling their schedules. And the trade offs, they're really significant. And contractors enjoy more freedom, but face inconsistent income and reduced job security. So, in other words, say a grant writer, I'm going to use that as an example. So, if you're a grant writer, you could say for a company, make sure that you get, 10 grants this year for a contract of $100,000. I'm going to use that as an example. So in that you have a year contract, you're obligated to get 10 grants. And maybe the company wants grants on planting trees. Maybe they're an environmental company or studying flowers, stuff like that. I don't know. Are you familiar with grants at all?
Uh, Not really, but
Mhm.
listening to you, I'm getting more informed about it.
Yes, because what that is grants are given. I don't know how many we're going to get now because the government's cutting a lot of our things. You can get a federal grant, you can get a state grant, you can get a local grant for highway safety. I'm going to use that as an example. So the state of New Jersey is going to give a grant for highway safety, and it's open to 5 companies that do road work. Remember, I'm just making this up as I go along. So you're going to write the grant for ABC Road Paving Company. That's what the contract would be. I'm just trying to give you an idea of a contract that you would do for a company or a county or a city. And that's how you get your contract. You're working on contract based. So if you have 5 contracts and you got 50,000, 100,000 for each one, that wouldn't be bad. You have to know what you're doing, but that's one thing today. Yeah. And they're also predicting that industry analysts predict that nearly 39% of core job skills will transform by 2030. Continuous learning has become essential rather than optional. So AI now extend beyond tech roles into virtually every field. Everybody uses it. So
Yeah.
I think it's something that you need to learn. Marketers require prompt engineering abilities, and even HR specialists must use AI. So sometimes now they're saying that you might you might have your interview with AI, not with a person. I don't like that, but
Same.
it can happen. It can definitely happen.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah. And you should focus on quality rather than quantity in your job search. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that.
Application should demonstrate that you've thoroughly researched the role. There's something I see here in Forbes too. AI also plays a huge role in helping you optimize your resumes. It's called applicant tracking systems, ATS. And they have tools like Job Scan. Have you heard of that? And Cell Syncer. And it can help you tailor your applications to the job description.
See, with that, I don't think that's bad.
No, that's good. That's helping you.
Mhm.
So a job that you like, if you applied for a marketing assistant. So this job scan or skill syncer will help you tailor your application to that job description. That's a good thing. I
Yeah,
think anybody listening should really use those two platforms.
yeah, I agree with that as well.
Hmm. Yeah, you have to really build relationships. It's very important to build relationships. Look what happened to you. We met so many people during the campaign, and you ended up getting a job. It wasn't your dream job, in the office that you were in. But my point is, you met people, they liked you, they saw you were qualified for that position, and you got the job.
Right.
So
I
this is
couldn't
what I
believe
keep.
how many people I met doing that campaign with you. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, you see, so you never know who's going to step in front of you.
Right.
So I hope everyone today got pleasure out of listening to this and learned something from it, young and old. I'm at the other end of the spectrum. So although I still would love to work more, it's the only thing I really knew how to do mostly my whole life. So being retired, I'm in a different journey, but I'm still doing things. So, yep.
Yes, I'm happy to hear that.
Mm.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Gap Perspective with Haley and Janet. We hope you found our conversation insightful as we explored the different ways the current job market is impacting Gen Z and baby boomers. We always appreciate you joining us as we bridge the generational divide. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. We would love to hear from you guys about any topics you like for us to discuss and just any feedback within tonight's episode. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.